What's up, fellow Vanguard nerds? I'm Babblerab, and today we have the other deck I'll be showing, which is Pacifica. Anybody who has been watching my channel knows that I love this deck to death, or did. It's still a lot of fun, but I might be moving it more towards a casual deck because of the focus on maybe Shushu or maybe Agi. This is the current build of it. It's still, how do I describe it? It's still something I'm testing. It's a concept idea. I have cut out the whole Harmony idea in favor of something else, which will help me more consistently get to my Pacificas. Pacifica didn't get any direct support in the Bermuda set, as anybody who has been watching all the leaks probably knows. However, there's one card which actually indirectly helped the build, and is possibly the reason why I might be running a 12 grade 3 build for the deck. Currently, I've upped it to 9. I may do it to 12 just for fun because of this one card. But other than that, not too much has changed, really. So, let's just get straight to it. So, main deck first. Friend of the Star, Mimosa. When she's bounced to your hand, check top 7, add up to any number of Pacificas with different names from from among them to your hand. Pretty good early game. Combos really nicely with Perla. She's a good card. 4 heals. Assume that every heal could possibly be a Shushu Melania, I don't know how it's pronounced. But yeah, assume that if you want to run the special Shushu heal, do it, because it's probably the optimal choice. This card's great. Shushu Roberta. I already said in my duo video, just run 4, period, unless you don't play crits, but you probably should. So this is something interesting. Her ability is GB2. You bounce her to hand, double the power of something that's attacking, and if that has GB2, it gets 1 crit. So my mentality was, if I'm swinging with a 2 crit Happiness Pacifica that's already sitting at 31k off of America, she just became a 62k 2 crit attacker. Now, that's a little bit more terrifying than 31 2 crit, I would say. So it works. Plus, additionally, with what's her name, Fantastic Passion.
Okay, Future Babblerab, I'm going to stop you right there. She bounces the whole field. I went on and tested this thing. It doesn't work because you bounce the whole field. It's a mandatory bounce, and it has to be every single unit, so therefore there's no physical way to actually get her back on the field to boost any of the Pacificas that are being called off the effect, so ignore all of this. The doubling of the power of the Pacifica, or of Twinkle Happiness, is still valid, however. It's just that the crits still lost a lot of utility in the deck, so you may want to just run regular crits again. Just 5 cents there.
Because I was running 10 crit before and then found that I wasn't really using Crook too much, and now that I'm not doing a Harmony build per se, I don't really need the Crook. So I've cut her and I'm running 12 crit. This is kind of the gimmick of the deck anyway, is that you want to be crit sacking your opponent because you've searched all your grade 3s out, so you have a higher chance of hitting crits. So yeah, that's the gimmick anyway, so it's not a big deal. Grade 1s are running 2 Shandi. I've cut 1 for an additional Pacifica. If I go to 12, there's going to be 0 in this deck since I'll be running 12 grade 3s, and then I'll probably cut a grade 2 or something for her. But yeah, Shandi just cuts additional stride fodder, and it's a 5k guard that can be used as a stride. But like I said, probably will cut her for more grade 3s. You're running Pacifica. Mona's kind of one of the best cards ever. It's such a simple effect. Combos so nicely with Friend of the Star and Friend of the Sun. So if you're not playing 4, at least play 3. Not really much to say there. And then what I've done is I'm running 4 grade 1 Shizuku. Reason being is that you check top 5 and you add a grade 3. And I'm running more grade 3, so I have a higher chance of getting a grade 3, and every grade 3 is Pacifica. In addition, she'll be comboing with the Shizuku Stride, which can search for her or Pacifica, and you can grab up to 2. Additionally, if you have 1 copy of Shizuku sitting in your hand, you now have a Sentinel Guard. Not Sentinel Guard, but you can prevent the opponent from guarding with grade 1s. So that's nice, and I don't play more than 1 different grade Shizuku, but this is still good. I mean, I could probably still run a grade 0 Shizuku to stop grade 1s, but Friend of the Star is kind of just really good. And then we're still running the unflipping PG. So, we move to the grade 2s. I've gone on a huge rant about this card. I'm not doing it again. If you have Pacifica as the main focus of what your deck is, don't ever play less than 4. Whatever number of cards that you're legally allowed to... the amount of copies of her that you're legally allowed to play in a deck is the amount of copies that you play of her. I've said this before. You could play, if you were allowed 8 copies of her, you play 8. No questions asked. Don't, like, done. You need to see her to do stuff. This deck's not as reliant as seeing her, but your optimal play or your optimal situation is that you have her. You need her so badly in the deck. Perla, because she combos with Friend of the Star. Swing with Perla. If you hit, Soul Blast 1, bounce Friend of the Star, Counterblast 1, check top 7, add a number of Pacificas. Because I'm doing a higher count of Pacificas, this gets even better. And this is actually, I think, a fairly good idea. I think the previous build was running Spica before, but this makes a lot of sense. So we have 4 heal triggers to use for G-Guards, and then we have 3 of these to use for G-Guards. Pacifica does not play defense very well because it doesn't exactly, depending on the build, have a very large hand of useful things. So by playing Sandy, you increase the amount of useful things that could be in your hand to ensure you don't die. So if you have 7 things that you could G-Guard with, it means that you have 7 chances of seeing them during the course of a game, so you don't die as quickly. Sandy is actually a really, really helpful card in this deck. Possibly the Aqua PG. I don't know. Again, grade 1 space is tight, but I think this is actually a really nice addition to the deck. It helps a lot. So, grade 3s is pretty simple. 3 of everything with Pacifica in its name. Your ideal ride is probably her, or her, obviously. Otherwise, you just take what you can get. What's nice about this that I didn't factor in before was that if I have a copy of her in my hand, now because I have 2 more in my deck potentially, I don't care about pitching it to Stride as much. Beforehand, it was just like, oh, I have 2 top idols in my deck, and if this one's in my damage zone or my Vanguard, I can't use you to Stride or my whole deck turns off. With 3 or potentially even 4, you care less and less the more Pacificas you have. So, it's probably why I'm going to start playing 9 grade 3s. I will fully admit that playing 8 was not my best decision. I just didn't like seeing top idol. Heck, I could go up to 11 grade 3s and play 4 of Eternal and 4 Planet Idol, honestly, and just stick with 3 top idol. And that would probably still even be better, because it still solves my what's the word I'm looking for? My, like, unreasonable, whatever. It still solves my, like, my irrational fear of drawing into too many top idols. Or riding top idol, but whatever. So, the G-Zone's a little tricky, because she's good, but I'm honestly at the point where I could almost say I could run 2 of her now. Because she's like a mini Megiddo, and everything else in the G-Zone's really useful. So the space got really tight with the addition of this new card. Like, the sad part is Olivia doesn't even have a place in like most of these decks anymore because of like the new stuff. Which is, it is sad because that used to basically be, you ran Olivia and like everything at one point because she was the best option we have. Now because of everything else, it's just like, you don't really need to play Olivia in any Bermuda decks anymore unless you're desperate, which is really sad, but whatever, it is what it is. So yeah, she's typically either Happiness or Shizuku Stride is your first Stride, because if you have the Friend of the Sun, you would go into her, but if you're needing grade 3s and you don't have Friend of the Sun, you go into her, because she'll search directly and she checks top 5 and adds up to 2 grade 3s or cards with Shizuku in their card name from deck to hand. If you hit a Shizuku off of that, great. If you hit a grade 3, great. Either works because Shizuku will get grade 3s for you anyway, no matter which one you're using. So, yeah. This is kind of acted as a little fail-safe if you don't see a Friend of the Sun or you don't have any grade 3s coming when you're ready to Stride. When you're playing more grade 3s, you're obviously going to not care because everything you use to Stride with is a grade 3. So that's not as big of an issue, but she's nice since you're playing a higher grade 3 ratio. And considering I don't really know how badly I want to build a Shizuku deck, this actually works surprisingly well in Pacifica. In addition, she gets 5k and guard restrict on every grade name of Shizuku that you reveal. So the 5k is not specific to the grades, so you could reveal 3 grade 1 Shizukus and she get 15k plus your opponent can't guard with PGs. But if you were to reveal like a grade 0, a 1, and a 2, they can't guard with those grades. It's good. It's really good. But yeah, so we got the Fantastic Passion Pacifica. I possibly want to play 2, but I need to figure out how frequently I can get a bunch of Pacificas into my hand. Like I said, her skill gives a GB2 skill to what she calls. So if you put one of her down behind one of the Pacificas, you could opt to not actually call a full field of 5 down. You could call 2 in front, 1 in the back, and then have 2 of her on both of the sides to boost the 2 other ones and double their power, plus give them a crit. So that's kind of why I'm running her. And Fantastic Passion's still pretty good because you get a huge number of attacks, which will pressure the opponent a lot. But at the same time, it's a little difficult of a condition to fulfill because this deck is really heavily reliant on seeing grade 3s. And if you just don't get lucky and don't see any of the cards you need, which is not likely, but it happens, then this deck doesn't work. Similarly to how like that also happens with my duos, but it is what it is. It's the price you pay for playing Vanguard. So she's a restand. She's a really good secondary option if everything else fails. And yeah, honestly, at this point, it's like you might as well be playing at least 2 of her in every single deck at this point. She's pretty much replacing, if you were ever running Olivia and you have her, replace Olivia with her. Because she's generic, and Bermuda Triangles have been needing like a generic restander since ever? I don't know. It's been too long since we've got, like, there's other clans that don't have restanders, but it's nice for Bermudas to finally have one. Interestingly enough, she's wicked in this deck. Megado-chan is solid because, like, again, you can call a bunch of Pacificas down and then just start attacking with them and swap positions with each other. And again, what are you most likely going to be discarding for Stride after you've gone through all your Stride fighters? You're going to be discarding Pacificas. So that's a ton of 15k attacks. And yeah, that's all I really need to say. Makes really good use for attacking. It's not, I'd say out of all the Bermuda decks, like, again, duos and Pacifica are not the best use of her, but it's a case of I have a Megiddo, so I might as well run it just for fun. So yeah, I'd say if you're trying to actually use this card competitively, that one Shushu card that when she's called for an effect or a cost, gives 3 units 5k. If you have 4 of her sitting in the drop zone and then you call off a Megiddo, oh my gosh, they're in for a world of hurt, because 5k to 3, 5k to 3, 5k to 3. Well, I guess it'd be kind of like a lighter form of Lulu, where it'd be 5k to Vanguard or Megiddo plus her, and then 5k to her, 5k to her, 5k to her, whatever. So you'd still be swinging for fairly large numbers, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, if you have a Megiddo, run a Megiddo. If not, try to get a copy of her, or if you don't have either of these two, you can also just run a Fantastic Passion Pacifica. Like, it's not essential to run a Zerath Dragon. If you have one, you might as well do it for fun, but that's it. And then G-Guards are, because you have America in the deck, or you could run or bounce Friend of the Star. So if America, power up your Vanguard by 5k, search Pacifica, or if you bounce Friend of the Star, counterblast 1, check top 7. I think it has to be, yeah. So there's a few effects that activate when stuff is bounced, so that's good. And this should be fairly self-explanatory because when this deck is eventually playing 12 grade 3s, you're going to have a bunch of grade 3s sitting in your hand, and they're not really going to be super useful to guard with. So the double Sandy is actually pretty helpful for decks that sit with a bunch of cards that are not useful defensively in them. Pacifica is a really good example of a deck that can have a big imposing looking hand, half of which is actually not usable to guard. I've had games, not like I said, but I've had games where I've been playing with my friends. I've been sitting with like 10 cards in hand. And he's been like, okay, how many cards do you have? I'm like, 10. Looked at my hand. 6 of them are Pacificas. So that's technically 4. But yeah. As with the duos, I do need to do a bit more testing to figure out what works well and what doesn't work well. I think this is a really cool gimmick for the deck. I really actually like how new Shizuku Stride like works indirectly, supports Pacifica as well as it does. There have been practice draws where I've grabbed like 2 Pacificas off of this, and it's just like, that's really good. Plus, you don't need any actual setup to do this either. It's really, really nice. And then, like I said, the nice little bonus is that, because I do run the grade 1 Shizuku, you can stop PGs with this attack as well. They might just take it anyway, but it's good. So, overall, Pacifica's still a lot of fun to play. And, yeah, that's the second of the Bermuda decks that I'll be showcasing. So then, got lots more coming. Peace.